Thank you for tuning in to The Benny Show. We love this program. We love doing the show every single day, and we love you. We enjoy that we are able to talk about truth, but unfortunately, as long as we are broadcasting on big tech, and as long as we are on platforms that are owned by massive corporations with woke staffers, we may not be able to speak freely about every single topic we want to. That's why we are so proud to announce that we are on Parler. And most importantly, we have an exclusive show on Parler called The Left Can't Meme. It's a hit show where we have an absolute riot every single week, sharing the memes that would get us banned on every other platform. But we share it on Parler. This week's episode is about Paul Pelosi and his blackout plastered driving straight through a field, through a stop sign, and all the memes associated with that moment. Ooh, they are spicy. Please join us over on Parler, where free speech lives for The Left Can't Meme later today. Now, enjoy the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and welcome to The Benny Show. America has an aristocracy problem, and we're going to prove exactly how dangerous that is on this show. But first, let's go and time travel with me, will you, please, back to the beautiful year of our Lord, 1787, October 5th, the streets of Paris. Women are gathering and rioting, and they are furious. The French women have had enough. They are demanding bread. Bread has increased tenfold, and they can no longer feed their hungry children, their starving families. Why is bread prices so high in the streets of Paris at this time? Well, utter and abject political incompetence is the answer. The elites and those in the aristocracy of France did not decide to harvest enough wheat or grain, and people went hungry. Paris, a large metropolitan center of population, had had enough. The women in France stormed the Bastille. They stole the garrison guards' weapons, and they dragged those weapons 6 miles outside of the city of Paris to the seat of power. That seat, the Palace of Versailles. There were 60,000 women and men and peasants and commoners marching all the way up to the pearly gates of Versailles, and the king, who never dreamed that a group of regular people could just march on his palace, didn't really have that many guards stationed there. In fact, the guards that were there were generally ceremonial. And so that mob stormed into the palace. They busted through a gate. They put the guard's head on a pike, the first one they found, and they marched into the palace itself. Marie Antoinette was able to escape their clutches by literally a hair. She banged on the king's door to be let in, but the rioting and the sounds and the noise and the chaos ensuing all throughout the palace, well, this didn't allow the king's guard to hear her. And as the story goes, Marie Antoinette escaped again by literally a hair. They opened up the door at the last second. Stuff out of a Hollywood movie. But here's what isn't out of a Hollywood movie. Here's the harsh reality. That when the peasant class, when the commoners, when regular people walked into Versailles, what they saw shocked them. They weren't necessarily out for blood or to hurt the people who lived at Versailles. They were just wanting bread. They needed to feed their own children. But when they walked through the palace of their king, their French king, in an aristocracy that had stood for 1,000 years, the House of Bourbon, what they saw was far more than a bourbon collection that I have downstairs. What they saw was a gluttonous orgy, bejeweled trappings from all over the world, gold-encrusted mirrors. They saw waste and plenty in a time of total and complete austerity for the French people. It seemed as though, as the regular people were having to deal with less and less and less and go hungry, the elites were actually getting more and more. And their gluttonous orgy-like activities at Versailles at the height of the power of Versailles inside of the palace that the Sun King built came to an end. The crowd was whipped into a frenzy, and they dragged the king and queen back to Paris with them from their countryside estate, away from their gluttonous activity and away from their plenty, and they showed the king and queen what times of austerity truly meant. And if people can't cut bread because they can't afford bread, well, they'll cut something else. And you know the way the story goes. Chop, chop. Not good. The regime, again, that stood for 1,000 years was brought down by what? Were they brought down by a foreign power or from an invasion? Were they brought down by a strong and super organized political force from within the country? No, actually. They were brought down by women, moms who can't feed their families, who are upset because there was a baby food shortage, technically, because there was a inability for them to provide for their families and their hungry children. Moms and women who marched through the streets were able to topple a dynasty that lasted for a millennia and throw over one of the most powerful nations on planet Earth. Now, Marie Antoinette is often cited as saying, "Let them eat cake," when she found out that these women couldn't afford bread. We don't know if that's true. Historians sort of debate whether that's real or not. But what we do know is that the modern day version of "let them eat cake" looks kind of like this.
This is something you can get through the mail.
Okay.
Run out. Can I show you?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the episode of Cribs I never knew I needed. Oh my. Wow.
Other people in our family go for some other flavors, but chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here.
If you were looking for the most cripplingly cringeworthy, egalitarian, aristocratic elite, pretentious ruling class cast member to cast in your movie as a modern-day Marie Antoinette, you needn't go any farther than Nancy Pelosi's office. Nancy Antionette was there on film, you may remember, at the height of the COVID lockdowns, which she endorsed. They destroyed the American economy. They crippled your life and mine. They harmed our children in so many ways unimaginable. It'll take decades to undo the damage that these monsters did. And here she is, at the height of that lockdown, telling you to quite literally eat dessert. Like her. She has a fridge full of $12 a pint ice cream, and that fridge itself is a $60,000 fridge, and of course it's located inside of her mansion. So Nancy Pelosi is indeed the modern-day personification of "let them eat cake." Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, should have probably eaten something before he got into his car to drive this week and careened across a stop sign, through a road, hit a man in a Jeep, knocked over a fence, and was arrested for a DUI. Old Paul Pelosi was blackout drunk, driving to their $5 million vineyard estate in Napa. The Pelosi's own this estate, of course, at your expense. The taxpayers paid for it through Nancy Pelosi's insider trading over stocks that she just so happens to also regulate. Sound illegal yet? Insider trader or insider traitor? But we can't really blame Paul Pelosi. You know, we're Christians on this channel. We can't really blame him necessarily for being blackout drunk on a weeknight because, well, Paul has to come home every evening and wake up every morning next to this.
Impact that it is having on food for the world. So when you're home thinking, what is this all about? Just think about when I was hungry, you fed me, in the Gospel of Matthew.
So Nancy Pelosi is citing scripture there in public. Wasn't there supposed to be like a lightning bolt from the sky, or the pit of hell is supposed to open up, right? She's supposed to spontaneously combust. But what do we know? Maybe next time. Yeah, well. Anyhow, it is indeed true that Nancy Pelosi can't take communion anymore at her church in San Francisco because a based bishop said, no, you aren't allowed to desecrate the teachings of the church while holding this position of power. Nancy Pelosi still apparently allowed to quote scripture. We'll let the Almighty sort that one out. But the rule stands that Pelosi herself is talking about clothing and feeding the people of Ukraine. She sent $40 billion of your dollars to the people of Ukraine. Reminder, Trump only asked for $15 billion to build his wall and to protect the people of America, but hey, who's counting, right? Let's spend 3 times that in a foreign country, building their border. Nancy Pelosi, however, doesn't have a border in California with the third world, and San Francisco looks like it. San Francisco, on the streets, you can see squalor and disgust. You can see human feces and truly the lowest form of human living conditions. People rotting in the sun, full of drugs, hopelessness, and crippled by the fentanyl that Nancy Pelosi oh so giggles at when it crosses the border, a border that she refuses to protect. The images from Nancy Pelosi's district are shocking. They are third world. This is a district that Nancy Pelosi has represented for nearly 50 years, and she's running again for office. Can you believe it? Yeah. Does Nancy Pelosi live there? Does she live like her constituents? Or even the constituents who are trying to make it? Maybe they're not drug dealers. Maybe they're not drug addicts. Maybe they're just living in that Tenderloin district of San Francisco. Have you ever seen Pelosi's district itself? It's like a little blue dot. Couldn't Nancy Pelosi do something about this rot? No. The answer is she won't do something about it because Nancy Pelosi's too busy in her multiple multi-million-dollar estates and mansions. Nancy Pelosi has mansions in San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi has mansions in Napa Valley that her husband is driving Miss Daisy drunk, plowing through the fields on his way to get back home after getting blitzed at a rager. Again, we feel bad for Paul Pelosi. We'll just leave it there. We feel bad for the dude. We understand why you got to hit the bottle, Paul. We understand, my boy. Nancy Pelosi's net worth has ballooned to over $100 million. How does it get that way? You know, she's just a humble public servant, right? Public servant for who? Herself. Nancy Pelosi has been engaged in insider trading, has always and often used her position of power in order to leverage her investment portfolio with her family, bought and sold stocks that she regulates, and again, insider trader or insider traitor. The hypocrisy is not the right way to say that. It's not. And this is the problem that we have as conservatives. We always criticize incorrectly. So it shouldn't be that they are hypocritical. That's not the point. They know they're hypocritical. The reason why they call you a basket of deplorables is because they hate you. They don't think you should have the same rights as they do. No. It's about hierarchy. It's about them believing that they are actually better than you, the creation of an American aristocracy. The American aristocracy knows that they have different rights than you do, and they act like it. Did you see Michael Sussman walk out of a court free as a bird this week? See Hunter Biden in shackles anytime soon? Paul Pelosi is allowed to go drive. Paul Pelosi, beware. Hide your kids. Hide your wife. If you live in Napa Valley, Paul Pelosi is back on the road. These people think they're better than you, and they act like it. Ask them a simple question that would be just common sense to the rest of us. Let's just pluck one out of thin air. Hey, John Kerry, did you fly private to go accept a climate change award?
On that issue, pollution, I understand that you came here with a private jet. Is that an environmental way to travel?
If you offset your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I negotiated the Paris Accords for the United States. I've been involved in this fight for years. I negotiated with President Xi to bring President Xi to the table so we could get Paris. And I believe the time it takes me to get somewhere, I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly to meet with people and get things done. But what I'm doing almost full time is working to win the battle of climate change. And in the end, if I offset and contribute my life to do this, I'm not going to be put on the defensive.
Come on. It's almost too perfect. It's the only way to travel for someone like me. And then he catches himself. He realized that he's just let the cat out of the bag. He just said what he's not allowed to say. That he knows that the rules don't apply to him. He knows that he is pumping and dumping carbon emissions into the air, and he would never give up his private jet. These people would never give up their private mansions built on the water. You know, Barack Obama has 2 of those. And who's the guy on Netflix saying he's trying to save the world? Barack Obama. Got 2 mansions right up against the water, right up on the ocean. One in Martha's Vineyard, one in Hawaii. Somebody explain to me exactly what's supposed to happen when the waters rise. Remember, that's what Barack Obama's supposed to be able to solve that. What's going to stop the water from going into your house, Barack Obama? Is it going to be like the hate has no home here sign, the BLM sign in the front of your yard? The water's going to be like, oh, great, they donated to Planned Parenthood. We don't flood this house. Something about nature, man. It just doesn't have any biases. It doesn't ask who you voted for. It is a law of nature that when you say the waters are going to rise, it's going to hit your house too. So why you got a house there, pal? Why are you throwing COVID ragers at that house, by the way? The rest of us have to mask up, mask our little kids on our flights. We can't afford to fly private. Our kids have to go to school masked, yet Barack Obama is throwing massive parties in Martha's Vineyard for his 60th birthday party. This is at the height of the COVID lockdown insanity. Remember this footage, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it looked like at Obama's house while you were locked down. Another question, why does Joe Biden get to be protected by guns and you don't? It's a good question. This dude's been in public service for like nigh on 70 years. So why does Joe Biden get guns and you don't? Joe Biden saying he wants gun confiscation in order to save lives. Watch.
We know certain ones will have significant impact and have no negative impact on the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon. You couldn't own certain kinds of weapons. It's just always been limitations. But guess what? These actions we've taken before, they saved lives.
So Joe Biden wants you to give up your guns. How about you first, Joe? You've been protected by assault weapons. Assault weapons? What is an assault weapon? An assault weapon is anything that's scary. Yeah, well, Black Lives Matter, black weapons matter, and my right to own one also matters. Joe Biden wants you to give up your guns, but you first, Joe. How about you prove to all of us by telling your security detail to disarm? Let's start with that. You ever seen a presidential motorcade? It's like an invading force. You could take over Baghdad with the detail that the president has. You seen the snipers traveling to the roof? I mean, this is unbelievable what the president travels with. It's a military conquering force, but Joe Biden is telling you to give up your guns. Got it. You have a 9mm, and Joe Biden's worried about that. He doesn't trust you, and he hates you, and he thinks he's better than you. He deserves to be protected. You don't. That's how it works. Joe Biden's own son, by the way, deserves to be in jail for many things, but let's just narrow in on one small subsection. How about gun crime? You've heard Joe Biden blather on, dentures falling out of his mouth, dandruff out of his hair, nonstop about gun criminals recently. But is Joe Biden going to be putting his own son into prison? Hunter Biden is a gun criminal. Hunter Biden purchased a gun illegally. He lied on a federal NICS form. He lied to the federal government. So where's the laws enacted there? Shouldn't they both be imprisoned? Shouldn't they both be barred from ever owning a firearm ever again? Shouldn't they both be a subject of the Department of Justice investigation into gun crimes? Well, no, because they have the last name Biden. You see, the rules are for the little people, you. If you dared to bring a firearm near a TSA checkpoint or anywhere where they're not allowed, or if you dared to lie on any of your federal firearm forms, well, then you, sir or ma'am, would be tossed into prison along with all the January 6th defendants. You see, the rules are, again, for the little people, and they laugh at your problems. They laugh with the issues that plague you. For instance, if you're in California and there's a drought and you can't get water for your kids or to water your lawn or for your pool, this is affecting your entire way of life. You'd think that the vice president, who used to be an elected representative from California, would be concerned about that, but instead she laughs in your face. Take it away, Kamala.
And I remember watching in the Oakland Hills, Northern California, the landscape turning from green to brown. And everyone, from my mother, our teachers, the radio DJs, KDIA, Lucky 13, saying how important it was to conserve water.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's called hierarchy. They're laughing at you. Paul Pelosi, Hunter Biden, Michael Sussman. It's all hierarchy. Michael Sussman, the evidence against him was demonstrable. Michael Sussman lied under oath. Michael Sussman went into the FBI and lied. John Durham had the receipts. The FBI testified against Michael Sussman. And the Hillary Clinton campaign did the same thing. Durham had it all. But what happened? The elites and the aristocracy defended themselves, and Michael Sussman walks free. You want to know why? Because F you. That's why. The rules don't matter. They don't apply to us. That's the message that they wanted to send. And they want you to hear that message. It really leads me to ask, how long will America, which is a country that was founded on destroying aristocracy worldwide, how long will we allow ourselves to prop up this aristocracy in our own country that should be illegal, which hates us, which breaks every rule and spits in our face? What was the context? What was the environment and the atmosphere that led to the French Revolution? Well, high cost of bread is what historians agree on. So why don't we check on the cost of bread in this country?
Americans hit by the worst inflation in decades could face a summer surge in prices for bread and baked goods. The overall cost of groceries already up 10% in March from a year earlier. And now folks in the bread industry are warning that prices could rise another 35% in the months ahead, pun not intended.
The corrupt, arrogant hierarchy of the aristocracy, their dismissiveness and their uncaring pretentiousness, their cruelty for the sake of cruelty, their power for the sake of power, and their torture for the sake of torture, it always leads to the same thing, a Versailles-like moment where people wake up. Let's hope that MAGA moms, Tiger moms, maybe even some French ladies don't check out the price of bread and start asking, why can't we feed our kids? Where's the baby formula? They may just vote differently in 2022 in mass in November, just 5 months from now, and we may have our own little revolution at hand here in this country. A renaissance, you might call it, of freedom and of America first. We would love to see it happen, and we're looking forward to it. Just like we were looking forward this entire show to this week's Solid Gold Moment, brought to you by Birch Gold.
And I don't think it's wise to take the guns away from the people and leave all the power to the government. We see how they are even with an armed populace. They still have a tendency towards totalitarianism. And the more increased power and control you have over people, the easier it is for them to do what they do. And there's a natural inclination when you're a person in power to try to hold more power and acquire more power. And there's never an inclination to give more power back to the people, to give more freedoms back to the people. Freedoms lost are rarely regained.
Yeah, so there's your solid gold moments brought to you by Birch Gold. Please consider investing with our friends at Birch Gold. Check out what bringing precious metals could do for you and your portfolio, and make it rain gold in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been The Benny Show today. My name is Benny Johnson. We are here because we have our priorities right. God, family, country. We were born free men and women, and we intend to stay that way. See you next week.